Hey everyone, so I'm going to run through a few examples for units 1 and 2 really quick. First of all, I'm going to start with some regular equations. So 1 through 9 are pretty much your regular equations. Some of them have fractions, some of them don't. Keep in mind that if you see parentheses, you're going to take the number in front and distribute it, like so. That's going to give me 12 minus 4x. And then I keep the rest of the equation the same. Plus 6x equals 2x plus 7. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and combine these two together. Negative 4x plus 6x is 2x. So I have 12 plus 2x equals 2x plus 7. And what some of you will notice is that I have the same number of x's on the left and the right. So if I want to get rid of these and move them over here, I would subtract them. But what happens when I do that is they both cancel out, and I'm left with 12 equals 7. That's not true, so this one has no solution. If that had been something like 12 equals 12, we would have infinite solutions. Now let's talk fractions for a second. I'm not going to solve both of these, but I am going to help you get them started. This is negative 8 divided by 3x plus 4. Whenever you're dividing by something, to get rid of it, you multiply. And what happens is we're actually going to multiply it over here, but over here, the 3x plus 4 just cancels out the 1 on the bottom. So now I have negative 8 equals, and I'm going to go ahead and distribute. 4 times 3x is 12x, and 4 times 4 is 16. I just want to solve this equation, right? So I'm going to subtract the 16 to the other side. Negative 8 minus 16 is negative 24 equals 12x. Then I'm going to divide by 12 on both sides. Negative 24 divided by 12 is negative 2. And I'll go ahead and box this one up here. Number 8, you'll notice, has two fractions. This is what's called cross multiplying. We're going to take 6 times 3x plus 2. Notice how I've multiplied both of these by the 6. And then it's going to equal 8 times 2x plus 5. 8 times 2x is 16x, and 8 times 5 is 40. And that is where I'm going to let you guys solve the rest of this one. And I'm going to move on to what's called an absolute value equation. So you'll notice that these bottom 6 are absolute value equations. What that means is they're going to have two answers, because when you solve an absolute value, I'm going to turn my page and make a note really quick that an absolute value equals the distance from 0. That might be a good note for you to write on your back page so that you can use it on the test. Now, I'm going to go back, flip it back to normal, and keep solving something. So I'm going to start with number 11 because a lot of people get scared of it. It's got a lot of fractions and absolute value. A lot going on. So first thing I'm going to do is get this part, the absolute value part, all by itself. I am dividing by negative 2, so to get rid of that, I multiply by negative 2 on both sides. Over on the left side, that just cancels out the other negative 2. So now I have the absolute value of x plus 7 equals negative 5 times negative 2, which is 10. Then, I still don't have the absolute value by itself. I need to subtract 7. The equation I have now is telling me that x is 3 units away from 0. Here's the deal, guys. If you start at 0 on a number line, you can either go 3 this way, that would be negative 3, or 3 this way, that would be positive 3. So my answers are x equals 3 and negative 3. Absolute value equations will always have two answers because there's always two different directions you can go from 0. Now I'm going to go ahead and help you with the other one that has a fraction in it and an absolute value, number 14. For number 14, you'll notice that there's nothing outside of the absolute values on this one. The thing is, we're not allowed to move the 3 or the 4 to the other side so that we can get x by itself unless those bars aren't there. And the only way to get rid of those bars is to say that this thing, x over 4 plus 3, it is 5 units away from 0. So it either equals 5 or it equals negative 5. This is the thing we're trying to find, and it's 5 units away. So only the 5 changes from a positive and a negative. Then we're going to solve both of these equations. But before you completely freak out on me and you're like, Mrs. McFadden, we have to do double the work on every single one. You kind of do, but if I'm going to subtract 3 to solve this equation, I'm also subtracting 3 over here. So they use the exact same steps. It's really not as bad as you might think. The only difference is 5 minus 3 is 2, and negative 5 minus 3 is negative 8. So we get two different answers this time. Then, I'm multiplying by 4, because to get rid of dividing by 4, you multiply by 4 on both equations. Only difference, again, is that 2 times 4 is 8, and negative 8 times 4 is negative 32. Alright, stay tuned for the backside, Unit 2. Alright, Unit 2 is inequalities. So inequalities get graphed because they are the ones that use these symbols. Less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. So we are also going to use something called interval notation because they don't have one answer, they have lots. So right here, it wants us to take this graph and write the inequality notation. Well, the circle's at negative 2, so I'm going to have x and negative 2. And all I have to do for the inequality notation is pick which inequality symbol I need. This line is pointing towards the left, and if you draw an arrow at the end, or just like outline the end of the arrow, see how that's like that symbol? That means that's the one you want. You'll put this little line like this underneath if that's a closed circle, like this one. That's inequality notation. Interval notation means left, comma, right. How far left does this line go, comma, how far right does this line go? For mine, it goes to the left forever because there's an arrow. That's negative infinity, because over here I'm in the negatives. Comma, to the right, it stops going to the right here at negative 2. Since that is an open circle, we're going to use parentheses around the negative 2. Infinities always get parentheses. Now, I'm going to do one more up here. We're going to graph this guy. It says it goes from negative 1 to 3. Then, since the negative 1 has a bracket, it gets a closed circle. Since the 3 doesn't, it has a parentheses, it gets an open circle. And since it's just in between these, there's no infinities involved, we just connect them like that. Now, for the interval or inequality notation, we need to do two of them. One for the negative 1 and one for the 3. The negative 1 is technically heading this direction, so we need one that points this direction, which looks like this. Since it's closed, you put the little line underneath. Over here, the 3 is heading to the left, so we need this one that's pointing to the left. It's an open circle, so it doesn't get the little line underneath. Technically, when you have two of them that are connected like this, you're supposed to use the word and in between. Down here, we have x and -2, kind of like the first one. In fact, this is identical to this. So I'm going to keep the original one I put up here, and then I'm also going to add one with this 2 that's going this way. And since it's going to the right, you need the symbol that looks like this. And it gets the little line underneath because it's a closed circle. Technically, when they go the other way, like this, away from each other, they get the word or in between. The interval notation for this one would be from -infinity to -2, parentheses, because it's an open circle, 2 to infinity, with a bracket because it's a closed circle. And whenever we put two intervals like this, we put a U in between. That's how inequalities work. Now, I'm just going to choose a couple of them down here to solve really quick. This one tends to freak people out because you got to distribute. Boom, boom. 2 times 3x is 6x. And 2 times -7 is -14. Other side stays the same. Then I'm going to do two things at once, so hold on tight. I'm going to subtract this 4x so that it comes over here. That cancels it out. That means I want to get rid of this 14 so that only my x's are over here. So I'm going to add that 14 to the other side. That cancels that out. 6x minus 4x is 2x. And 26 plus 14 is 30. Then you just divide by 2. And x is less than 15. So 15 is what goes on your number line. Gets an open circle because it doesn't have the little line underneath. And you're going to the left because that's which way that symbol is pointing. Also, you should end up drawing this symbol at the end of your line. Like that. The interval notation for this one is -infinity to 15. Parentheses because there's not a closed circle in sight. Now let's do one that has an or. This one has an or. Subtract the 1 to the other side. -3 minus 1 is -4. I'm going to put -4 on my number line. Closed circle because it's less than or equals to. And it goes to the left. Then, for this one, I'm going to divide the whole thing by -4. But when you divide an inequality by a negative, you have to flip the symbol. Like that. Then, -8 divided by -4 is 2. And it goes to the right because that's which direction it's facing. My interval notation is going to be -infinity to -4, and then 2 to infinity. And I just made a slight mistake. Hopefully you caught it. This is supposed to be a bracket. And last but definitely not least, we have ones that, like these two, 9 and 10, x is in the middle, and there's like a double inequality going on. I'm going to do number 10 with you. Your goal is to get x all by itself in the middle. The first step is to get rid of this 6. It's a plus 6, so we know we're going to minus 6. The kind of tricky thing is you do it on both of the other sides. -50 minus 6 is -56. Notice how I kept the symbols the same for right now. Then I have to divide by 7 on all three parts. Because in here, it just gets rid of the 7x in front of the x. -56 divided by 7 is -8. And -14 divided by 7 is -2. You'll notice that x is in between -8 and -2. That means we put our two circles on here. And I'm sorry, I forgot to write it. This one has a little line underneath, so the -2 gets closed. And whenever it's in between like this, you shade in between like that. So our interval notation goes from -8 to -2 with a bracket because it's a closed circle. Alright, that's all for this video. Look for the next one over units 3 and 4.